So my hundreds of thousands of comments have been beckoning, unless they've seen this undetailed house, of course. How do you decide what to build? And how do you come up with something creative and unique? Well, lucky for all you fans or commenters, today's topic is walking you through my build process. Now, for those of you here on the internet who are unaware of what a joke is, because I seem to come along you quite often, that clip and intro was made exactly for you. I promise I am super grateful for any likes or subscribers I get, and I would be especially grateful if you gave me all your money, subscribed, and funded my YouTube channel. Anyways, the part that wasn't a joke is today's topic. As I said, I am going to be walking you through my build process. So where do I start? Well, generally, I begin my build on the wonderful app of Pinterest. I look for inspiration and build styles I haven't tried, such as these that I'm showing you on the screen. And I know what you're thinking. How is that making something new? Well, kind viewer, I take these general build styles and I fit them to my own current interests, things that fascinate me or motivate me to play. This keeps big builds from feeling like a task, and instead, if I can find interest in what I'm building, I get in a groove and I just don't want to stop building in the first place. Let's take an example for this. I, as someone who loves the God who created the universe, am absolutely fascinated by nature and science. Now, no matter what your own beliefs are, I'm sure you can still see the beauty in nature. I'm also very interested in video games and world building. An example of this would be Hollow Knight. I love the world building in this game, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. Here's some screenshots. I love the idea of a world built into nature. Now, yes, I did take a very, very vague idea from within Hollow Knight, but I think it's a really cool one, and it really motivated me for this build. Putting these two things together, nature fitting alongside the world building or aspects of Hollow Knight, I got to the idea for this build. Now, as you can already see, I began this build with the base to a tower, but as happens in every tower I build, and those of you who've been around the channel for a little while already know, I completely shifted direction, and I decided to build a tree trunk around the base of my tower. And yes, I know it looks very unnatural now, but I promise it gets better, or at least I think it gets better. You can tell me how horrible it is in the comments in a moment if you would like to, but it does get better. Moving on, I would like to talk about a step that has already been taken in this build, though I often find it to be the most difficult step in any build that I do. And this is simply just getting started with the build. Many don't even realize they're facing this issue because it is often masked by the feeling and belief that you are not prepared to start the build. While I do believe being prepared to build is an important step, I also believe to get started, you simply need enough resources to build the first portion of your base. Start with one small detail and go from there. It's so much more fun that way. In another sense, many feel they are not ready in terms of knowing what they are actually building. I would argue, though, you just need to have an idea of how to start your build. It is so much more fun to apply your beliefs or sudden thoughts that you have during the build as you go. I mean, that's what I did with this build, and I love the way it turns out, though I don't love where it is at this point in the time lapse. You need to remember, building isn't just a job. You should make it fun. Build something that's special to you or has meaning to you, or that you just think is cool. If you really don't like the idea of this, I recommend what I am doing here. This is simply a build on my creative build world. Everything big that I make, I start here in creative before moving it over to my survival worlds. For example, in my recent SMP video, not to make a shameless plug, I added this to my starter base. Yes, it is over detailed, but it still gave me an idea of what I want to do with this build. This is a small spoiler, as the base will receive some of these details in the next episode, but at least you have the general idea, and also it won't be this over detailed. Anyways, back to the current build. Something that often happens to me is I begin building and realize I just don't like the direction that the build is going. This is another benefit of building in a creative test world. While I did not need to in this build because I managed to make changes I like, it is important to be willing to take something down and simply restart. And no, this doesn't mean you need to take your whole base down and start from scratch. Instead, if you don't like a wall or the shape of a detail, you have one of two choices. Either just roll with the detail and make it work. I did that in this space, and sometimes it works out exactly how you want it to. Don't be afraid to tear down a small detail, though, and simply change the shape or do something that makes you like the build more because you're building something that you like, something that's special to you. So make it your way. It's not a big deal if you have to restart a small thing. Nobody cares if you did something that you don't like with the build. Just keep moving forwards and make it how you want it. Something I'm sure many are thinking now is that you have tried all of this, but you still feel as though you're just not a great builder. And you likely are a pretty good builder, and you just are comparing yourself to every other builder out there. Or maybe you think I'm a bad builder. I mean, I don't really care if you do. But this leads me to my next topic. No builder started out perfect. And still, no builder is perfect, even if Smallish Beans is pretty close. To become a better builder, and I would like to emphasize this is something I am still focusing on, you just need to build more. It takes time and thought. One thing that has helped me find progress in my ability to build better is building things I see on the internet. This may sound boring, but it's very fun to take details from different bases on Reddit or on Pinterest and try to fit them into your next house. This helps you realize what goes well with what detail, what you can add to a build, and how you can make something your own, how you can make a detail your own. Eventually, it is important to learn to be creative in your builds. However, there's no problem with taking inspiration from other builders. I mean, every builder does it. It's also important, though, to mess around and try something new. Try to make something that comes to your mind. And if you don't like it, start again. Once you have more of a sense for building, you can start trying to come up with more and more ideas. And this is when building becomes extremely fun, more than it ever was before. And it'll just continue to do so. This, of course, is not the only route. I've also found progress from constantly trying to build new things, no matter how many tries it takes to build what I'm thinking of. There's no single route for how to become a builder. And I think that is extremely important to realize. I can't make you a perfect builder, but I can give you tips and point you in the right direction. Even though that is still the same very direction that I'm walking in, and if you don't like that direction, you can take your own. That's the nice thing about creativity. There's so much room to build whatever you wish to build. You have the freedom to build what you want to. You can make it wonderful, you can make your own details, you can make it yourself. So why only take from internet builds? Yes, take inspiration, but I encourage you. Make something that is you. Make something that if someone looks at it, they can see a little bit of you in that build. Or they can see a little bit of what you believe or what you think. This is one of the most fun aspects of building, and I heavily encourage that you do so. So let's talk about this build. As you saw, I just made a ground on the inside, and I don't love the ground as it is at that moment, but there's a lot of room to move. I also came back up to the top to make it look more like this tree was just totally ripped apart. And if you would like me to make a second video on this, I can build some lore for that because I have so many ideas relating to that I would love to do. Anyways, I did have to come off to the side and just think for a moment because I got a little bit stuck. And yes, it's okay to take a break from your builds. But then eventually I came up with an idea. So coming back down here, you saw I started to place these lights. I was thinking I would go for some street lamps to take from the Hollow Knight idea, and maybe I would make this an arena, kind of like my own idea of a boss room. But then I kind of changed my mind, and it kind of hit me. What if I make this a library? And I know you're thinking, what are you even talking about? This is nothing like a library. But trust me, I think it's pretty exciting. Although I did mess around with writing a quote on a sign for a minute, and it was pretty cringy, and I it took a lot of time. I top like one of the top 5 most embarrassing moments in any video I've made yet. And I know that's not saying much, but wow, I wrote some cringy quotes down. Those you will not hear about any of those. You might see the one that I already put there, but You won't be seeing like any of the 10 that I tried. They are all immensely bad. They're like, anyways, moving on from my terrible quote attempts. We, I took another break, as you can see, and let's just talk about the rest of this build as we go. Now for the moss, as I was building earlier, I did try to make it seem as though it was coming from the top and going down on each wall, and then I connected it to the sides to make it seem as though it grew naturally. And now, as I mentioned, decided to move on with the idea of making this an actual bookcase, and I think it turned out super, super cool. And no, I didn't just leave it this perfect circle. I did decide to place some here in the middle, which really brought home the feeling of it being a library. I think if I didn't do this, it would feel still a little bit too much like a boss room or like a pointless room. I think adding these made this feeling that you're walking around a library, and it made it feel like the space was a little bit bigger. Not more open, but there was more room to walk almost, because you had to walk around these bookshelves and it felt like you were traveling through this entire build. And this is something I actually love about this, and it's something I've had to learn to do in my builds. Filling the space is very, very helpful, and it makes it so you can just actually walk around and feel like a build is complete, because in real life, it's not often you're walking around in a perfectly open room that only has details on the side of it. Things stick out. And I really do love the way I separated the stone and the wood up here. Not to totally brag on my own building, but this did get me super excited. Now you have seen all that I can show you from this point of view, so I would like to hop into first person and show you everything that I decided to do in terms of redstone, which is just a little bit of redstone, but I'm excited about it. I'm trying to learn redstone. It's something I want to do on this channel, so give me tips if you want, but I would like to show you my redstone now. And also, I know that a little bit of work could be done on the logs down at the bottom, but I still think it turned out pretty good. I just need to work on this upper view and maybe make it a little bit more random in the way that the different stems stick out, but that is not a vital thing for this build. And yeah, let's go ahead and hop into first person so I can show you around this build and show you everything that I got into, because I am so, so excited about this. All right, so here we are in the actual world, and you may be wondering what's behind me, and I don't normally do this in my test world, but just because we're making a video on this build, I decided to build a little surrounding area. This is probably not what my surrounding area will look like, because I want to build more giant trees, but I just wanted to build something so you could have an idea on this build, and here we are in spectator mode, because I just wanted to show you what this looks like with shaders on, and don't worry, we will take shaders off in a moment, because I know a lot of people aren't big shaders fans, which is fair. I think shaders can make any build look better, even a dirt house, but I also can appreciate the nice lighting of them and the nice feeling of the stars and the moon, so I kind of just wanted to show around this build, and the log is a little dark, but I mean, that can always be worked on. And I just wanted to fly around and really just mess around with it. So I decided, of course, to set the time to day. And yeah, let's just take more of a view, or actually night. I I can't even remember what I did. I wasn't recording my audio. That's why we're doing this. But here we are. I do really like the inside of this with this dim look. It feels a lot like a dim library where like I'm gonna keep all my future enchanted books, which is actually the purpose behind this build. I want to build it in my hardcore world, and I can keep all my mending books on one row and my unbreaking on another, and just separate my books. So this is really my big plan with it, and I'm super excited with how this looks because I play my hardcore world fairly often on shaders, so I think it turned out pretty awesome. But yeah, I here we are out of shaders, and I did decide to extend the cracked stone down a little bit. These are just small features or details that you can do on your own builds, and I just wanted to show that you can do this part very random. I don't suggest generally texturing totally randomly, but it works on something like this where you're just slightly setting it down. As long as it's connected to more cracked stone, it looks good, in my opinion at least. And then I made the poor decision to try vines because I was like, hey, these will look good, even though I have blue and purple books and all these things. So that did not work out well, especially when I turned the tick speed up. And I was like, oh, that's not working. And went even further to cover the wall in vines, and it didn't work out how I wanted it to, which is a little bit sad, but I should not have tried vines. Maybe on like one wall, but it's just it's far too much detail on the walls. They could just use some different kinds of stone for texturing. This was a bit too much, and I acknowledge that. But after we did that, I got into showing my redstone. And I know you're like, what's so special about your redstone? Because I suck at redstone, and this took me forever to figure out, but I'm super excited that I figured it out because it's awesome. Like, look at this. I did make it pretty clear. Like, you can make it more hidden, but, and yeah, I just used a lever. Like, anybody could find this. And I'll probably use hopper mine carts when I build this in survival, but I wanted to use a lever so I could show it off and so you could see exactly what I did. It was very simple redstone. I basically hooked up my redstone to a lit redstone torch that was extending the pistons. And all you had to do was flick this torch or flick this lever to turn off the redstone torch, and that pretty much did most of the work for you. You flick the lever and the door opens up exactly how you would want it to. And on the other side, this is one of the really big things that got me super excited is I just grabbed a, basically set this up, and I'll show you in a second how it works, but if I put a book in this, it just closes it behind me. So if I were to play on a multiplayer world and build a build like this, or you want to use this, you definitely can. I'll show you how it works here in just a moment. But I am super, super excited about this. And yes, I made the mistake of trying to show you in spectator, even though it's super dark in there. But you can see my redstone. I used the comparator to extend the length. I believe that's correct. And yeah, it you can't see the pistons it goes into. I don't do redstone videos. It's not my thing. You you already know that though. So you saw my attempt, and then I embarrassed myself more by trying to right click a lever even though I was in spectator mode. I really got to figure this redstone stuff out. I've been playing this game for years and I still can't figure it out. But here's how I did this. I put an observer on the side of this bookshelf, and what this lets you do is when you put a book in, the observer realizes update in the block and extends it. And the nice thing about this is you can fill it up, and each time you update the block, it will close and then open. So you can fill it up as much as you want, and nobody needs to know that that's a secret entrance if you are going from the inside. And yes, there's better ways you can set this up, but you can make this super hidden, ideally, and it would work awesome. So yeah, this is the overall build. I do encourage adding function like redstone to your builds because it just adds another set of detail that you can do, and it's just fun. I like making builds that I'm going to use in my survival worlds eventually, although sometimes I'll just make a build and create it for the sake of making it. And yeah, I'm just super excited about this one. Obviously, I'll be taking those vines down because they're a bit much. But yeah, this is my library and a log, I guess. That's what I would call it. So I really hope that everybody enjoyed this video. And if you have any tips for me building, let me know down in the comments. And if you want to send me your builds, let me know. I'll set up a Discord and you can send me all your builds or you can reach out about it. And I would love to react to them online because I'm sure your builds are fantastic and I'm sure many of you are much better builders than I am. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe and comment. I really am thankful for likes, comments, and everything else. Bye.